In Islam, God, the Almighty Creator who created everything, created many sorts of beings, and it is about these beings I am going to talk about and outline here roughly. Arguably highest among the creations of God is humanity, humans, who God created with free will, but with the intention that the purpose of humanity was to worship none except God. And humanity, God created from dry clay. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَلٍ مِنْ حَمَاءٍ مَسْنُونٍ. Verily, we created man out of dry clay, from an aged mud. And this can stand in contrast with angels, who are created from either light, Nour, or fire, Nar, or even ice, Jalid. Though these statements about the creation of the angels are in secondary sources and not in the Quran. And there's a lot of debate about what angels are created from. But on the subject of angels, if the rule of humanity is to worship God by free will, then in contrast, angels have the rule of obeying God and carrying out His will more directly. In fact, angels in Islam might not even have free will like humanity. And that is a common view within Islam. Though there does exist some verses in the Quran where the angels are questioning God or doing actions that go against God's will, which implies that they do have free will. Throughout the entirety of Islam, there exist a lot of various angels that are named. In the Quran there are only a few, but in the larger tradition of Islam, if you include the hadiths, the seerah, and some of the consensus literature that exists, then you will get a long list of angels doing various tasks. In the Islamic traditions you have everything from Jibril or Gabriel, who is the messenger of God and who recited the Quran to Muhammad so that he could recite it afterwards to the people. And you also have angels such as Munkar and Nakir, two angels whose job it is to question the dead on the day of resurrection, when everyone is resurrected at the end of time in order to face God's judgment. Then they will question the actions and report upon the actions of the human that stands in front of God's judgment. Jibril, Munkar, and Nakir were just some examples of angels, but there exist many more in the Islamic traditions. And these have various hierarchies and groupings and functions and categories, which will deserve its own video. Talking about angels dutifully carrying out the will of God, it might be a good time to talk about the opposite. Demons, the devil. Though there does exist verses in the Quran where Shaitan or Satan is described as an angel, or as being among angels that are teaching forbidden magic to humanity, or where Iblis, another name for the devil, is described as kneeling with the angels. Though with some exceptions, Islam does not view demons as being a result of fallen angels. Rather, demons are a result of another group of creatures turning bad. And that category of beings is what we are going to discuss now. And might I present myself, and some other less nice members of this category. The Jinn, who God created from fire. وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِنْ مَارِجٍ مِنْ نَارٍ. And He created the Jinn from a flame of fire. Fire, just like in certain traditions He did with the angels, if they are not agreed upon to have been created from light. Though here it is directly in the Quran. The Jinn are similar to humans in that they have free will and can be both good or bad with regards to following the commands of God in Islam. And the devil, Iblis, is said to be from among the Jinn in the most traditional views of Islamic theology. And Iblis rebelled against God by refusing to bow before Adam, the first human. And there are traditions that the Jinn who rebelled against God were later captured by various prophets, especially Solomon or Sulaiman in Arabic, who captured them in lamps or rings. This is why you hear stories about genies in bottles or lamps or rings. The word jinn actually comes from a root having a meaning of hidden. So a genie, a singular term of jinn as plural, is a hidden being, an unseen being. And the jinn can have many shapes and forms, and very varied abilities and magical powers, and hierarchies among them, and rules regarding them in various traditions and folklore, which may or may not be considered part of Islam, depending upon how you view it. And on the subject of jinn being strange creatures, there exists a fourth category of creatures that could be jinn, or could be angels, or could be something else. And that is other fantastical creatures that exist in Islam but are never explained about what they are. Here we have creatures such as the Burge, which is a flying mule that Muhammad rode on his night journey. We have the Jinn, which are a kind of creatures that might be related to jinn or might be its own thing, as a thing that was created alongside humanity and the jinn. We have the Hur al-Ain, which are extremely beautiful, everlasting virgin women in heaven with extremely beautiful eyes, given to the best of believers in the cause of God's will, such as for martyrs. We also have Ya'juj and Ma'juj, which are Gog and Magog, who might be tribes of men, angels, jinn, or something else entirely. However, they will wreak havoc just before the day of judgment. And speak about the last judgment, you also have Dabat al-Ard, which is a creature that will appear during the end times. These and many more creatures that exist in Islam, especially when you go into the secondary literature and not just the Quran, are very varied, and some of these are sometimes considered as jinn or angels by certain theologians, or sometimes considered as their own things. It is important here to mention that both the jinn and the angels in Islam can have very varied forms. In fact, I actually made a video about how angels in Islam can be very strange, just like Judeo-Christian angels can be. Anyway, on the subject of strange, much less strange is the last category of creations made by God, and that is animals and plants that were made to serve the sentient creatures' needs as they worship God. Because I think it's needed to be reminded that God in Islam created everything, including the very things that make life possible for humans. And these were the rough categories of creatures made by God in Islam. As this is a very broad subject, I will go into these things more in the future and do more detailed overviews of them. But if you have any questions, or if you want me to focus upon any one of these creatures more in a future video, please post a comment. Please do subscribe, as it would help the channel spread awareness about the humanities. اشترك بالقناة من فضلكم.